Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video, and today guys we're going to be taking a look at the Cadian Castellan and giving some first impressions after my first game using the new Imperial Guard officer. Now I actually did a battle report with the new Cadian Castellan and a whole host of new units as well, and if you want to watch that video, don't worry, there's going to be a link at the end of this episode to it. But in today's episode, we're going to be focusing in on the Cadian Castellan. How does he feel to use on the tabletop? What were his standout features and what were the initial lessons learned from having a go with this new senior officer? Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is that reroll hit roll of 1 aura. It's very, very nice. I found it to be such a force multiplier. Now, I know other armies out there are going to be saying, we've always had reroll 1s to hit rolls. This is not a big problem. All the Space Marine players are sort of laughing at us quaint guardsmen and us not having access to those kind of things. But I've always maintained that if Guard got easy access to auras and orders, it would be a really, really big force multiplier. And I'm confident to say that is the case. Now, one thing I would mention is that when you go through the playtester version of the Codex, or the earlier version that I've got my hands on, you notice that there isn't a lot of core in there. In fact, it mostly seems to be the troop infantry and some of the elite infantry as well, and everything else doesn't have it. So he does give out reroll 1s to hit, but it mostly seems to be for your line infantry. Now that's good because the line infantry data sheets on their own aren't that exciting, but thanks to people like the Castellan, you can make your infantry do work. I know there was some concern that pure infantry was not going to be the main way to go anymore, and that GW was forcing us to go in a different direction, classic GW, bait and switching, all that kind of stuff. But to me, it seems like with officers like the Castellan supporting your infantry, you can very much still have a powerful infantry-based fighting force in the Guard. Now, the next thing that I found was an interesting realization was that I was able to do 2 orders with the Castellan, but I often felt like I didn't need the second order. I know I've been using a lot of platoon commanders recently with Nephilim and the 8th edition Codex, and the fact that I've been taking battalions and my HQ slots have typically been taken by tank commanders, so I've been using platoon commanders for my orders. Maybe I've just got used to it, but I really didn't find that I needed 2 orders on this guy. It was nice to have the extra order, but that was kind of it. I think that is a reflection of 2 things. Firstly, orders now splash. They proc out to other units. So typically, this guy would issue an order, and then it would just splash out to all the other units in range. And I think the other reason is the kind of orders that the new Guard Codex has. I mean, realistically, to me, it just feels like you're going to be doing take aim most of the time. Some of the other orders are kind of cool, but I found that take aim was really my go-to one. I wanted that +1 to hit more than anything else. Move and move was nice to have in the bag, but that was it. Another thing that I found really interesting is that, and why I think that the second order wasn't that needed, is this guy only has a 6-inch order range. Now, that means that he's only going to be in range of so many units. So you don't really need 2 orders. He's going to give out take aim, and then all these squads in range are just going to get take aim. Now, it's cool because you have that second order. It's good to have it in the toolbox. It's good to have it in your back pocket. But I'm just saying, straight up, what I found more useful was the command squad having like a 24-inch range order range than having a second order on the Castellan. I just thought that was an interesting thing because I've always felt like, of course, more orders the better, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Now, I mentioned it just a moment ago, but I definitely found that 6-inch order range very restrictive. And what you've got to understand is the Castellan, I didn't really appreciate this until I used him, but the Castellan doesn't have access to a Voxcaster. Okay, as far as I can tell, only the command squad can use the command squad Voxcaster. So only the command squad can do long distance orders. Everyone else, like the Castellan, like the Commissar, they've got to be within 6 inches. Now, that is a little restrictive, especially when you're literally using the 2 different units side by side. You're using the command squad and the Castellan. I felt like the command squad was way more flexible. Way, way more flexible. And it doesn't seem like such a big deal, but what you've got to understand is that orders are done in the command phase now. So if you order a squad and then they move off, they might move off. Next turn, that squad's going to be out of range of the Castellan. They're not going to be able to get another order from him. So the 6-inch range is actually weirdly restrictive because no longer can you do things in the order that you want to do them in, because it used to be, previously in 8th edition, you would move the Castellan forward, move the infantry squad forward, maybe advance them, bring a guy or two back to the officer, and then he would issue the order. And then when it came to next turn, you could move the senior officer forward, move the senior officer, get him back in range of that infantry squad again, and it was all fine. You just can't do that anymore. You've got to be set up for your orders preemptively in each command phase. One other thing to mention is that in the Warhammer community article, they tried to make out that this guy was going to be some kind of combat beast. He is not, okay? He is a company commander for all intents and purposes. He just has an extra wound. All right, so don't be fooled by the Warhammer community article and think God has suddenly got access to some kind of jewel list or anything. We don't. All right, this guy is a company commander and he's a buffering character, and that's exactly what he should be doing. He shouldn't be seeking out jewels or anything like that. Now, watching this video so far, you might think that the Castellan is a bad unit and that you don't want to take him. Nothing could be further from the truth. He's a really, really good unit, and you're definitely going to want to include one in your army. One major positive about this guy is that he is so much cheaper than a command squad. I mean, a command squad literally costs 80 points to do one order. They come with loads of other buffs, but it's 80 points to do one order. A Castellan is going to cost you 40, 45 points, and he does 2 orders, okay? And he comes with a reroll to hit aura. So it's, trust me, he's a really, really viable character. When I've been going through these things, I've just been sort of noticing some of the restrictions with him. But don't get me wrong, he's really, really important. If you're building a standard sort of battalion, you're probably going to want like 2 tank commanders and then probably a Castellan as well. I mean, he's definitely going to be a good cheap officer that you can use to support your infantry forces. Also, what's really important to note is that whilst not having the command squad means he doesn't get access to Voxcasters and Regiment Standard stuff like that, by being a Lone Ranger, he's a much better unit for supporting your mechanized army. I mean, you can put this guy in a Chimera with a squad of infantry. You can't put a command squad and a squad of infantry in the same Chimera. There's not enough transport slots. So he is a very good unit. He just operates very differently to the command squad, which I'll be covering in another video. Also, the combination of having 2 orders but only having that short order range actually makes him really good for supporting a combined arms push, which contains a mixture of tanks and infantry, because I found him to be a very natural place to put the warlord trait superior tactical training. Now, what superior tactical training does is it lets you issue orders from a list you wouldn't normally know. So for example, officers normally only know regimental orders, and commissars know prefectus orders, and tank commanders know tank orders. But if you take superior tactical training on a Castellan, he can do regimental orders, and then he can pick before the game if he wants to do prefectus orders or also be able to do tank orders. What I found was really useful is actually having a Castellan and a commissar buddying up, and they together could lead quite a nice spearhead made up of both infantry and tanks, because the Castellan can order the infantry and he can order the tanks with superior tactical training. And by having a commissar nearby, you've got access to that 3rd level of orders that, you know, again, more tools in the toolbox. So he's a very flexible officer if you build him out to be one. And a great example of flexibility is when I was pushing forward with my infantry and my tanks, I was able to give a reroll 1 aura out to my infantry and then boost their ballistic skill with take aim. And then I was able to get essentially the same effect on the Lehman Russes, because the Lehman Russes got +1 to hit inbuilt from their turret weapons, and then the Castellan was, with superior tactical training, was able to go gunners kill on sight, which meant they got reroll 1s to hit. So suddenly everyone that was around this Castellan was getting +1 to hit and reroll 1s. So he is a very flexible officer, and I think that he's a really good force multiplier. But what do you guys think about the new officer? Let me know down in that comment section below. Now, that's all we've got time for today. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like. And if you want to make sure you see more of these first impressions and unit reviews, then subscribe to never miss an episode. And if you've really enjoyed today's video, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It's thanks to the channel members and patrons that I'm able to do Mordy and Glory full time now. And that means I'm really able to test information out, do the deep dives, and bring it to you as early as possible. So if you like this kind of content, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. You get loads of perks as well, including access to the Mordy and Glory Discord, where we have an active community of over 500 members, all of them active. There's so much going on. It's always busy, it's always bustling, it's always chatting, everything from tactics to painting to memes, just to everything. So if that sounds like a whole heap of fun, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon. And I just want to take a moment now to say a big thank you to the latest channel members. So huge thank you to Lewis Cleveland, Lucas Monez Gonzalez, James Roberts, Matt Small, It's For My, David Ewing, Travis McHenry, Michael Wolf, Matt Triplett, Donny Rose, 2310 Luke, James Bowen, Will K, Lambo UK, Night of Dawn, Danimation, Fireside Stories, Troy Jernigan, Timmer 1996, Robbie Death Spectre, Just Monica, Redick, and Commissar General. Thank you guys for becoming channel members. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to say a shout out to the latest Patreon support as well. So a big thank you to Andrew, Anthony, Robert, Fool's Fate, Owen, Malice in Wonderland, Siri, James Hughes, Stephen Page, Matty B, and Sean Mulligan. Thank you guys for your ongoing Patreon support. Now, last but certainly not least, I want to say a huge thank you to the top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have truly gone the extra mile, gone above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to supporting the channel. I want to say a massive thank you to Bon Vert, Navy Veteran, Phil French, Ross Miller, Tequal, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and Sly Varney. Massive thank you to all of these guys. Their ongoing support makes a huge, huge difference. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.